Hello, students. I am out for today, so please open up your composition notebook to page 1. Today we are working on pages 34 and 35. Today is 1-29, and we are still continuing our lesson over constant rate of change. So instead of writing that, you could just draw an arrow going down from what we learned last week. All right, so in our number routine, how do you know? A man holds 5,000, tank holds 5,000 gallons of water. After 6 hours, it now only holds 3,800 gallons of water. The water engineer says the rate of change of gallons per hour is 200 gallons per hour. The mayor says the rate of change of gallons per hour is negative 200 gallons per hour. Who is right? So please do this on page 34. You may pause it at this time. All right, welcome back. So in here, let's think. Let's imagine you have a water tank. It holds 5,000 gallons of water, but now it only holds 3,800 gallons. So how many gallons of water did the city use? 5,000 minus 3,800, 0, 0. Can I take 8 from 0? No, regroup. This will become a 10. So 1,200 gallons were used by the city, and it took how many hours to use it? 6 hours. So if we divide this and find a unit rate, it is 200 gallons per hour. So the city used 200. So it'll be positive or negative? Negative. If you also wrote the city used 200 gallons per hour, that makes sense because this word used means negative 200. And here is another explanation of it if you did not understand exactly what I did. So we started with 5,000 minus 3,800 is 1,200, 200 gallons per hour leaking, so mayor is right. Let's look at your homework from the previous night. This is not for a grade because I'm not here to grade it, so how could it be for a grade? So question number 1 is it decreased 2 feet per hour. So it took from 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. is 4 hours. The water level is 10 feet. And it plunged or went down to 2 feet. So it decreased 2 feet per hour or negative 2 feet per hour. Question number 2, the answer is increased $50 per month. So she had $300. After 3 months, there's 150. Then it grew to $300. So it grew $150 in 3 months or $50 per month. That's how it changed. Number 3, the temperature at noon was 88 degrees. 4 p.m., the temperature was 72 degrees. So that is 4 hours. So the temperature dropped 16 degrees in 4 hours, or it dropped 4 degrees per hour, or negative 4 degrees per hour. Number 4, it increased a half an inch per month. So Jazz was 43 inches. 18 months later, she was 52 inches. I mean, she grew by 9 inches. Must be like a horse or something. Can't be human. So how much did she grow every month? If we simplify 9/18, that's 1/2, half an inch per month. Number 5, in number 5, let's see how it's growing. So these are the weeks, these are the mile. The constant rate of change, it goes up 10 every week. So 10 miles every week. Number 6, what is the length changing by? It is changing 2 inches every month. 2 inches every month. And that is all. So tonight's homework is to finish your water park problem. So you may put up your red checking pen back into the bucket. You may want to pause at this time to give students time to put up their stuff. All right, so please open up your notebook to page 35. 35, you should have a blank space. So in here, this is a picture. These are the figure numbers, and this is a table. If you had to complete this table, and I'll do it for you, I need you to figure out the equation. In figure number one, number of squares. There are 2 squares. In figure number 2, there are 4 squares. In figure number 3, there are 6 squares. And figure number 4, there are 8 squares. Do you know what is the equation here? Well, before we do that, let's do the independent. Which side is the independent? Which side is the dependent? Independent, dependent. The number of squares depends on which figure number or what picture we are talking about. So if you had to estimate, what do you think figure number 5 would be? How many squares would that take? I believe you start with figure number 4 and you're changing it by 2 more squares. It seemed like you're changing it by 2 squares. So the equation is y equal times 2 times 2, 2x. Let's graph this. So that's what the equation is. So we had to graph this. Figure 1 was 2. Figure 2 was 4. Figure 3 was 6. Figure 4 was 8. Figure 5 was 10. Write an equation to show the relationship between a figure number and a number. I guess I shouldn't have told you the equation, but I did already. If you have not figured out, the equation is y equal 2x. If you write it like this way, whoops. If you write it like this way, it's good, but in 8th grade algebra, this is what they expect to see. Now, this is what we are learning. Does the equation represent a constant rate of change? Let's look at it. How is it changing by? So we found the equation. Every time we see another figure number, how is it changing by? How many extra squares are you adding to this? So change by. It is changing by 2 for every figure number 1. So it's the constant rate of change is changing by 2 squares for every figure number. You can see it from this graph. If you look at this graph, from figure number 1, there's 2 squares. Figure number 2, there are 4 squares. So it's changing by 2 for every 1 figure number. And let's see if I got it correct. Yep, it is plus 2 squares for every figure. Let's try the next one. In this one, you're going to find the equation, and you're going to tell me what is the constant rate of change. So in figure number 1, how many squares do you see? I see 1, 2, 2.5. I'll do 2.5. Figure number 2, I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 whole squares. In figure number 3, I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.5. How is it changing from figure to figure? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. If you had to make a prediction for figure number 5, how many number of squares do you think would be needed for this? This is figure number 4. Hopefully you said it changes by 2.5. So this week, 12.5. So we completed a table. Now let's graph it. In figure number 1, it required 2.5 squares. Figure number 2 required a use of 5 squares. Figure number 3 is 7.5. Figure number 4 is 10. And figure number 5 is 12.5. So which side is the independent and which side is the dependent? Independent, dependent. In a graph, which side is the independent, dependent? Independent, dependent. Can you say the word dependent using the word depends? How do you know that this is the dependent using the word depends? Hopefully you're thinking the number of square depends on which figure number you're at. Now, what is the equation that shows the relationship between x and y? So you may want to pause at this time and give students time to figure out the equation on their paper. Welcome back. What is the equation? Is it additive or multiplicative? Well, if it's additive, then I would add 1.5 to this, but no, it wouldn't work for this one. I believe it is multiplicative. It is times 2.5. So y equal 2.5x. Now this is where does the equation represent a constant rate of change? So let's look at our table and graph. How is it changing by for every figure number? So for every figure number that I look at, I need an extra 2.5 squares. Let's look at the graph. Is that true for this one? So if I go from this figure to this figure, it increases by 2.5. It increases by 2.5. Increases by 2.5. So it is 2.5 squares for every figure. And here's a last example. Find a constant rate of change. So these represent the hours. These represent the mile. How is it changing per hour? Per hour, each hour. Before you said, oh, it changed by 12. Because some of you may say, oh, it changed 12 miles every hour. No, careful. Did you notice that it jumped from 0 to 2 and 2 to 4? So it skipped the odd numbers. So this is 2 hours. So these are 12 miles. So what is the change per hour, each hour? If I have to fill in this gap right here, 1. So if it's 12 miles for 2 hours, that means it is 6 miles for each hour. So hopefully you put a 6 right here. And this 3 would be 6 more would be 22. So let me take out a different pen color. So every hour, the miles go up by 6. So did it change constant or steady? Was it the same change every hour? Yeah, but stop. I think I made a mistake right here. It should have said plus 6 right here. I apologize. Let me erase this. So let's do that one more time in case I did not make sense to you. So in 0 hour, you're at 4 miles. In 1 hour, you should be at 10 because it changed by 6. And then in 2 hours, you're at 16 miles. So this changed by 6. This changed by 6. In 3 hours, you're at 22 miles. So it's changed by 6. So the constant rate of change, it goes from 4 miles to 16 miles or 12 miles in 2 hours. So that means it is every hour it goes up 6 miles. But we started at what number? 4 miles. So if we're starting at 4 and we drove for 6 more miles, we're at 10. So the constant rate of change is 6 miles for every hour. So what you're going to do now is you are going to be doing a minor activity. This is due tomorrow. If you finish it, yeah, oh, no, turn in tomorrow. This is a minor grade. This is not a homework grade, a minor grade. The McMeans Junior High Student Council is planning a trip to a water park. There are 2 water parks in the Houston area. Well, actually 3, but we're only going to talk about 2. Typhoon, Texas, near the Katy Mills Mall, and Wet n Wild, that's near the Woodlands. We're using the initials TT and Wet n Wild. Assume that both parks are equal in popularity. Typhoon, Texas charges $15 per student. So each student will cost you $15. While Wet n Wild charges $10 plus per student plus a one-time $20 rental fee for the pavilion. So you will have to pay that one-time $20 rental fee for the pavilion. So it's cheaper, as you can tell, but you still have to pay, but then you have to pay $20 rental fee. Which park would be the most economical? Which park would be the better price. So what you're going to do is you're going to create a convincing presentation to Bemidji's Junior High Student Council sponsor. That's Miss Oaks, and I can't remember who the other person is. I think it's Miss Oaks only. Pointing out which water park is better deal and why. Support your presentation with graphs, table, and a paragraph. Yes, you're going to have to write in this class. Then the second part is which water park charges a steady or constant rate of change for cost per student. You may use a calculator. Woo. Of course, you have to know what to put in a calculator. I mean, you can use a calculator all you want, but you don't know what to put in, it's still going to get it wrong. All right, so you may need two colors because when you are making your graph, I would like to see the two colors. So hopefully you have two color pencils or something like that. I would not highly recommend you don't use marker because what if you make a mistake? Then you won't be able to erase that marker. And I'm not giving you another sheet of this. So in Typhoon, Texas, again, what you need to do is you need to go back here and read. Typhoon, Texas charges $15 per student. So if you have all these number of students, can you find the cost? Because the cost depends on how many students. And then for Typhoon, Texas, write an equation show the relationship between X and Y. And then you're going to graph it. As you can tell, I used green. Then you're going to make a key, decide what color. Then you're going to graph it. You must decide which side is the dependent side, which side is the independent side. So look on this one, figure out which one is dependent, so you know what to put down here and here. It says use a coordinate graph plane to graph the data. Be sure to label it. I will take off points if you do not label it. Now, Wet and Wild. This is where it gets a little more tricky. Wet and Wild charges $10 per student. That's a pretty good price. But it plus a one-time $20 rental fee for the pavilion. What does that mean? That means if no one goes, you still have to pay that $20 rental fee because you reserved it. And then what if one student goes and you have to pay $20 rental fee? What is the cost? And so on and so on. You do not need to write an equation here because we're not going to be learning how to write this equation until Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday of this week. And then you need to graph it. You're going to know this in the graph. Which park is a better deal? Why? For Typhoon, Texas, when is it cheaper? For Wet and Wild, when is it cheaper? When is it the same for both park? So you need to make a persuasive essay. And then last but not least, which water park charges a steady, a steady same rate of change for same price per student? Because one of the water park charges a steady rate for same price per student. And this is how we're grading you. Did you make a Wet and Wild table? Did you do it correctly? 15 points. Did you make the Typhoon, Texas table correctly? Get another 15 points. Did you write an equation for Typhoon, Texas, deciding if it's additive or multiplicative, and writing an equation in the form of y equal? Did you graph it correctly? Did you graph Wet and Wild and Typhoon, Texas correctly? Did you do a persuasive essay? Did you explain when is Typhoon, Texas cheaper? When is Wet and Wild cheaper? And when is the same? And did you tell me which part charges a constant rate of change or a steady rate? And good luck. Hope to see you this week, unless something happens. Okay, all right, talk to you later. Bye.